Thank you, Presiding Officer. This is a moment when years of excuses, of obfuscation and prevarication should finally come to an end. The Lord Advocate's statement, meaning a trial of safe consumption rooms in Scotland can now proceed, is long overdue and long predicted. There have been significant legal voices saying for years that there was no barrier in law to a competent proposal of this kind proceeding, and that the question was one of Scottish Government competence and political will. It should never have taken this long. In 2017, the then Lord Advocate ruled against an incompetent proposal from this Government, and in the years since they have indulged in constitutional grievances in an attempt to shift the blame. In 2018, then Public Health Minister Joe Fitzpatrick, MSP, described safe consumption rooms as a policy that will save lives, but claimed it was Westminster who prevented them from being tested here. The SNP Government proclaimed itself powerless to act. Mr Fitzpatrick said in November 2019, "I just do not understand how the UK Government can stand in the way of saving lives." How many of the 296 recorded drug deaths in Dundee from 2017 to now could have been avoided if action had been taken by ministers in the Scottish Government? The most recent UK-wide data shows that Scottish drug deaths in 2021 were almost 3 times higher than the UK average. That is a deeply inconvenient truth for this Government that has admitted to taking their eye off the ball. It is a truth that should have given ministers pause before tabling motions such as the one we have in front of us today, and rightly criticised by my colleagues Jackie Baillie and Paul Sweeney. This really matters, because admitting to gross failures in this Government's policy agenda can help Scotland avoid such mistakes again. There has never been any answer from this Government, as I highlighted to Ben McPherson, on who approved that Valium scripts be withdrawn back in 2014, seeding a market in illicit benzodiazepines that have been implicated in thousands of lost lives in Scotland. Policy failure in this area, certainly.
Minister.
So, just for the record, on the issue of a decision being taken to stop prescribing benzodiazepines in Scotland, that was not a decision taken by any government. It was a clinical decision based on research that showed a risk of harm from prescribing benzodiazepines. And crucially, it was a UK-wide trend. It wasn't just a Scottish thing. Now, the Scottish Government will publish the results of its recent consultation on prescribing benzodiazepines, and this will include guidelines on safe prescribing, and that publication is scheduled later this year. Just for the record, because there's been a couple of interventions misinforming on this issue.
Michael Marra, I can give you the time.
I thank the Minister for the intervention. I have to say that I have asked time and again for an explanation in this chamber and elsewhere as to the process around it, and it has never been forthcoming. And I would say that if there is minutes that can be provided of a national prescribing decision that was taken, because it was a national approach rather than an individual approach taken by clinicians, it was taken across the whole of the country. So I appreciate that that information could be published, if you have it in front of you now, so that parliamentarians could see the basis of the decision that was taken. No, thank you, sir. It was clearly a decision that has resulted in thousands of lives being lost in this country. There have been perverse consequences from it, certainly.
Minister.
Certainly, I can attempt to furnish you with that information, but I can assure you...
Please, through the Chair.
So, I certainly can attempt to furnish the member with that information. I don't think there was a decision taken by government to reduce the prescription of benzodiazepine prescribing in Scotland in particular. I can assure the member, and everyone will be aware, I'm a registered pharmacist and I am specialised in mental health for 20 years. There is a body of evidence which shows the clinical challenges associated with prescribing benzodiazepines, and I think the member is misleading the chamber by trying to imply that is a peculiar situation in Scotland. That is something which raises concern throughout the world.
Michael Marra.
If I can have the time back, Presiding Officer, it would be greatly appreciated. I have to say to the Minister that the drug death figures since then absolutely show a complete departure from the UK pattern and the Scottish pattern. And within the toxicology reports that are ascribed to those deaths, there's a massive increase in gabapentin, etizolam, illicit street drugs as a result of these scripts being withdrawn. Now, I can, like the Minister, I'm happy to engage with her on a future basis on this point, because this, frankly, is the most engaged that I've had a government minister on this point, and I've been raising it for 2.5 years. So it'll be welcome further dialogue on it, because it's absolutely essential that we learn where the mistakes have been made. And this has been a grotesque mistake. It has resulted in deaths, and the figures prove that to be the case. So the policy failure in this area are measured in deaths. There's no doubt about that. And they must now set aside, this government, the default constitutional arguments and set out clearly and fully: when will the MAT standards be met? Now 18 months overdue. When will they be fully implemented? Can the Minister provide guarantees that the safe consumption pilot in Glasgow will be fully funded and that the budget disaster in Glasgow's Health and Social Care Partnership will not affect that? Will this include research to prove the direct and indirect impacts of the intervention so that people can have confidence in any potential rollout? What progress is being made on drug checking pilot proposed for Dundee? And I've had a promise for that from the Minister Whittam today, which is welcome. But we need to make sure that we can build on that health messaging and the development of accurate data. And I do remain deeply concerned, Presiding Officer, in the statement last week and in the Government speeches today. The Government still does not have a firm grasp of what is actually going on behind the top-line statistics. The drop in drug deaths for 2022 was welcome, but does the Government actually know why it has happened? Last week in the Chamber, I raised with Ministers reports I'm hearing from drug workers and campaigners in Dundee of a very significant rise in the use of crack cocaine. The impacts of this drug on people's behaviours, on their relationships and wider communities are severe and destabilising. The Minister told me in the Chamber last week that services in Dundee must pivot to the new challenges presented by changes in drug use. But the complete failure of service reform in my home city has been the subject of multiple damning reports and has led to the resignation of the independent chair of the Alcohol and Drug Partnership. The last decade of inertia and blame shifting does not give me any confidence that the systems we have are agile, dynamic and ready to respond. Very, very far from it. So I am grateful, Presiding Officer, to the Minister for offering to meet with me and discuss this particular issue in greater depth. I hope the Minister can commit to publishing any information the Government has on the trends in drug use in Dundee and across Scotland. This data is crucial in ensuring the months and years ahead are not yet more wasted time. Time which the people of Dundee simply cannot afford to lose, and we, as their representatives in this Parliament, must not allow to be squandered.
Thank you.